Hey guys, it's Greg. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be doing another episode of Metal Shreducation. This time, we're looking at Youth Gone Wild by Skid Row. Now, I know what you're thinking. Oh my god, Skid Row, Youth Gone Wild. That's not really hard. They have like amazing guitar players, like great, amazing tone. There's no way you could possibly do that. Well, shut up and don't be silly. I can do that, and that's why I've summoned you for this video. You're welcome. Okay, so Metal Shreducation. If you're new here and you've never seen this series before, this series is all about teaching you a classic riff and how to get the band's tone from the record with gear that you have, not gear that they had, the actual gear that we have in modern society, all right? And speaking of guitar, tone, and gear lessons, you can get all of the above if you sign up for my Patreon, patreon.com/shreddingdead. There will be a link in the video description below, and plans start as little as $5 a month. Okay, so doing the research for this particular one, I found a lot of conflicting things. A lot of people said it was the ADA MP1, famous rack preamp from the 80s, slaved into a Marshall. Other people said it was a Rivera amp. Other people said it was just a Marshall amp, blah, 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 blah. It's a classic 80s tone that has a ton of mids. So what can we use to get that if we don't have any of those things, which most of you aren't going to. So what I'm going to use for this one is my EVH 5150 LBX Stealth. Now I could have easily used my Marshall DSL-20 for this as well. So, if you have that amp and you don't have a 5150, go ahead and use really similar settings for that. I wanted to bring the 5150 into this series because I've done a lot of stuff with the DSL-20. That's great, but not everyone has a Marshall. Not everyone's going to have a DSL-20 or something similar. So, and a lot of people have a 5150. That's why I'm bringing this bad boy into this video. Okay, so guitar-wise for this, I'm not exactly sure what guitars they used. I mean, every kind of video and every record, it seemed like they basically used a different super strat. I think it was Kramer's. Don't quote me on that. I'm not a Skid Row guitar expert. But basically what I'm going to be using for this is my super strat, is my Charvel DK24. It has Seymour Duncan pickups in there, which I imagine is kind of similar to what they used on the recording. Again, use whatever kind of super strat you have that's going to have some sort of high output humbuckers. That's not as important as really the actual amp settings themselves. And cabinet-wise for this, I'm using my Engel 212 with V30s. Obviously, vintage 30s was the key to kind of all the 80s sounds. All right, so now next thing we're going to go over is the amp settings. You'll see that on the screen now. The only knob that you can't see on there too is my resonance knob, and that's just sitting right at noon on the back. And there's no boost on this, there's no additional pedals. The only other thing I'm using is my Dunable Eidolon for reverb only. I have that set to about maybe 4 out of 10, but again, you'll see that on the screen now. So that's it. Really simple setup, really simple rig, and really simple tone. It just really has a lot of mids to it. That's the key, and aggression, right? So that's why I'm using the LBX. It just has a little bit more aggressive mids, and I don't need a boost. Whereas if I use like a Marshall or something, I'd probably need that boost to get that little bit more aggression out of it. All right. So with that, let's get to the lesson part. Okay, so this song is in the key of G. Now, it's going to seem kind of deceptive at first because it actually starts on an A-sharp bar chord, but don't worry, because it'll eventually transition to the key of G. Okay, so there's two different ways to play this opening. The easiest way is what I'm going to start with, but if that's a little too hard for you, I'll show you an alternate way to play it. So it's an A-sharp bar chord. What's an A-sharp? It's 1 on the A string, and then 3, 3, 3, and then it should be 1 on the bottom. They're not playing the bottom string, so you're just getting these many notes in here. Right, so we have... So that's one way to do it. So essentially I'm just taking my first finger, I'm playing the first fret of the A string. I'm using my pinky to lay on the 3rd fret of the D, G, and B strings. Now if you can't do that, because it's kind of hard to do, right? Alternatively, you could use all 4 fingers and play it like this. Still using your first finger here, then bringing your middle ring and pinky down to play it and sound like this. So again, doesn't matter. which way you do it, it's still both right, but getting to that bar chord and kind of getting out of it is pretty difficult in my opinion. So I would go with either the ring finger or the pinky, just laying flat for those. Now after that, this riff transitions to a bunch of inverted and inverted minor chords. Oh my god, what do those mean? You can explain it? No, video over, thanks. Okay, I will. Inverted is a fancy term for a first and a fourth, and in layman's term, that just simply means we're just laying our fingers flat and playing the same note underneath it. So like 5th fret, for example, on the D, 5th fret on the G. Right? But the first note after the A sharp is an open D inverted, so that's just D and G strings open like this. Now 90% of this riff is just those two strings with different chords along it, right? So we're gonna go. Okay, now we move to the actual chords we're going to be using here. So it's the 5th fret bar again on the D and G. I'm just using one finger. It's 5-3, back to open. Okay, so we have. Okay, now our first inverted minor, which is 3 on the D string and 2 on the G. And after that, it resolves to a regular inverted. So I'm basically playing like this, so I can use my ring finger and just kind of sneak that in and hit the 3rd fret underneath, right? So we have 3 and 2, 3 and 3, and then back to open. Okay, so it's. Okay, that's the first ending. Now the second ending is going to be slightly different. We're going to play the same chords in the same order, but instead of resolving to an open, we're going to resolve to a normal power chord, 1 on the D, 3 on the G. Okay, so that's. He does that twice, so the riff sounds like. Okay, and then there's a little fill at the end. We're going to do the same 5-3 and open. Okay, then we're going to add some palm mutes here on the D string, 2 palm mutes. And then it's the same 1 and 3 chord with a pull off this time. And then move it up a string, and it's the exact same thing. So now we're on the A string, 2 palm mutes, and then 1 and 3. Okay, and then 1 palm mute, and then a full G acoustic chord. Okay, so again, starting at the very beginning, we have our A sharp bar chord. We're going to play it twice. And then resolve to your open D and G inverted chord. Okay, part 1. Part 2 twice. Okay, and then part 3. This is played 2 times through, and just the first part has the actual bar chord, right? So the first time we had the. But as we play through this, you're not going to repeat that. You're going to repeat everything except that. So I'm going to play it from the very beginning and get to the end. All right. And so that'll do it for the lesson, guys. All right, guys, so that'll do it for this lesson. What do you think? Did I sort of nail the tone, kind of nail it, or super duper awesome nail it? Let me know in the comments below. If there's any other videos you want to see in this series, let me know as well. This is all being suggested by you guys, so give me other bands you want me to do, other records, whatever, and we'll do that next in the series. All right, as always, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell so you know when you get all the videos from me, because why wouldn't you want to know about that? Everyone wants to know about that. And join the Patreon, and I'll summon you for the next video. See, as soon as I do that, that's when I get loud. When I go, calm, collective, curls. Ready?